It's been 10 years since we started the Craft Beer channel. It's gone from a hobby, to a side hustle, to a full-time job thanks to the support of over 150,000 subscribers and most importantly 400 wonderful Patreons. We aren't done yet, but in the last decade we've travelled all over the world, from Norway's Arctic Circle to China's Oktoberfest, from the west coast of America to sunny Barcelona. We've met food royalty, actual royalty, and of course brewing royalty, while making 3 feature-length documentaries and winning several awards for our filmmaking. It hasn't all been smooth sailing, far from it, but as well as the beers we've tasted and brewed and the places we've been, we'll always remember the incredible people we've met. To thank them, as well as our viewers, subscribers and Patreons, we decided to host a 10-year anniversary festival and brew a few collaboration beers to serve there. What started as 4 beers snowballed to become 10, one for each year we've been making films. Which means for the last 4 months we've been travelling all over the UK and even Sweden to brew exciting beers with some of the inspirational friends we've made along the way. We've made everything from traditional German fest beers to British hop golden ales, through piney West Coast IPAs to heavily fruited Berliner Weisses, and of course a big juicy New England IPA and one monster coffee Imperial Stout. This is the story of just one of those brew days.
Welcome to the Craft Beer channel and possibly the most picturesque industrial estate in the south of England, Johnny.
It is one hell of a view, those white cliffs of Lewis. We are down at BEAK and we are brewing what we thought was going to be a West Coast pale, but as it's turned out during the day, it's now a West Coast IPA.
I love it. I've just got to roll with the punches, man.
Yeah, more is more.
More is definitely more when it comes to West Coast.
Well, yeah, that's probably true. That's probably true. Although we will be talking with the BEAK guys about how we make balance and structure in these big old beers, and that's what we've been trying to attempt to make here. You know, a West Coast IPA that is bright.
Yes.
It is bitter.
Yes.
That has some caramel character, but also some big modern character. This is what we want from our Westies now. It's got to be the antithesis of the New England, and I think that's what we've achieved. A beautiful colour, beautiful bitterness, bold malt, bolder hops. It's going to be, I think, an absolute stunner. And this is the story of how we sweated a lot while we made it. BEAK are my kind of brewery, focusing on modern, quenching beers that beg to be drunk straight off the canning line or from the tank, dripping in condensation and frothy head. They're best known for their New England IPAs, but after tasting a piney little number called Trees, we saw the potential for them to become one of the best UK West Coast producers. So for our birthday collaboration, we approached them with a challenge. To brew a classic West Coaster, pin bright, full of malt body and sweetness, and yet bitter, piney and citrusy as hell. It was a challenge they were very keen to take on, and perhaps a little too keen, as we'll find out after the mash-in and a catch-up with founder Danny and head brewer Robin about what BEAK has done since we last visited. Robin, Danny, thank you so much for having us again.
Thanks for coming. Thank you.
We were last here about 2 years ago. I think it was just post-COVID. Things have got hecticer? More hectic?
Hecticer. I like hectic.
Yeah, it's a good word. It's a good word. Yeah, like more tanks, more ladders.
Yeah.
So things have gone well for you since we were last here.
Yeah, really well. Yeah, so over the last couple of years, we've expanded our production more than 50%, or maybe even double.
Maybe threefold.
Yeah. We've got a few new members of staff on the production team and elsewhere, and making more beer, and we still can't sell enough. So yeah, it's going really well.
And is that coming from Parade? Is that coming from the other stuff that you're making? I presume it's mostly hazy. That's
mainly
that's
hazy.
The growth,
But... So Parade is maybe 20 or 30% of our production. Yeah. So that's become a core beer, and we're just celebrating the 3rd anniversary of that beer.
With a tipper version.
Tipper version in a silver can.
Yeah, we're going big.
Yeah. Your tasting notes, I have to say, your Instagram account.
That's all Danny.
Right.
Yeah.
Just the way you write. I mean, so we met doing a journalism degree. And you're using those skills of writing short,
desperately
pithy...
still trying to prove myself as a failed journalist.
Yeah, you can still be a writer. Prove yourself failed. Yeah. You can. There's an art to short writing.
I think it's the inspiration for that is basically Forest and Maine and Villa and Delphi.
Right.
Like, so if you read their tasting notes,
incredibly poetic.
There's no sort of mention of mango puree or anything like that, which I quite like.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's more kind of evocative.
Yeah.
And with the labels as well, like we were having a meeting over a coffee just now talking about the name and the labels, and I'm very excited about the vista people are going to see on that label,
Yes.
and hopefully the name, which we think we've got.
Jay's worked his magic again, and you guys take the credit for the name. So.
Well, Brad should. While we were talking about other things, Brad was just there on his phone. I was like, he's not listening again, and then suddenly comes out with a cracker of a
Genius
name.
comes out,
Yeah, unreal. You guys, you said it's the 3rd birthday of BEAK here.
Yeah.
But it's been a long-term concern for you. I remember, like, we kind of pretty much lost touch after uni, and then I went to Indie Man, and you were pouring beer, and I was like,
what the hell are you doing?
yeah, and I don't think we ever discussed beer when we knew each other the first time.
Yeah.
And we both ended up in the industry.
I was probably more into coffee at that stage.
Right,
I was
okay.
homebrewing lots, I think, when I met you at uni, and then it was basically a homebrew project that got out of control.
Right.
I started brewing my recipes at North Brewco, Northern Monk, other kind of contract breweries around the UK. And just gradually I just figured that brewing was more fun than writing.
Than struggling to write.
It got out of control, and basically this is how we've ended
Yeah, I mean,
up.
this is spiralling, mate. You should put a check on it at some point,
Yeah,
surely.
yeah.
I mean, you're not going to, right? You're
No,
looking at more
we're gonna
units.
continue,
And,
yeah.
I get- did you guys expect the incredible success you've had with the hazy? Because that wasn't, you were at Burning Sky, which very much shies away from that style as well. So were you surprised by the success of the sort of the big fluffy beers you made?
Yes and no.
It's been a long process.
Yeah, it's been a process to get to where we are now, I would say.
Right. Yeah. As always, overnight success is never overnight.
No,
right?
it's not.
Yeah.
Like, the beers are completely different than
Yeah.
the first beers that we've brewed, in terms of like grist and just how we treat all of it, actually. Like, and I'd say over the past, like, it's like anything. You kind of make these big leaps and gains in the first couple of months, going, oh, that improves it quite a lot. Mm-hmm. And then since then, it's just these tiny incremental little changes, and they all add up to something great, hopefully.
Well, I have to say, like, Parade, your core beer, has not only been improving, but it's definitely tasting
Great.
as one of the best sort of core IPAs,
Great.
I think, in the country. And we used it in a video in which we said, like, this is the difference between good and bad beers. We talked about marginal gains. Mm-hmm. We talked about structure as opposed to balance. New England beers, my argument was they're never going to be balanced, but what you guys bring is structure in the way that you create them. So when we came to you to do our birthday beer, the obvious choice was a West Coast IPA. So tell me about your love of West Coast IPAs, because the reason I came to you with the West Coast IPA is because I love trees. It had a gorgeous amber colour.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
I mean, probably roughly around the time that we came to visit. But it had a beautiful colour, a beautiful big piney aroma, proper bitterness, and was completely bright. And that's what we've sort of lost over the last 7 years since hazy beers have come along. We'd keep trying to apply, I guess, hazy IPA techniques to a very different beer in the West Coast.
Yeah, I mean, you're trying to get almost two opposite ends of the spectrum with what you can get from hops, right?
Yeah.
Like, hazy, you're going for something quite sweet, full-bodied, and aromatic, right? And West Coast, you're going for something that's like bitter and dry, and more the like piney side of things. So it's just two sides of the same coin for me. And you can, I don't know, I think the aroma in West Coast is sometimes a bit forgotten about. So we'll definitely be doing like a big dry hop charge, and we'll also be layering some of those hops as well in the hot side.
Right, so adding hops throughout the boil,
Exactly,
whereas in New England it's like enough bitterness and then whirlpool.
Whirlpool.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say like the aroma's forgotten about with West Coast, because a lot of the time when people think about West Coast now, they want it bright, they want a little bit of colour to it, and they want the bitterness. Mm-hmm. And then, like lots of breweries are throwing in, Nectaron, Azaka, all these incredibly aromatic, juicy hops, and that's not, for me, quite the right approach either. So we've gone with, Citra can bring that juice, but otherwise it's Simcoe and it's Amarillo, which
it's nice as a thread. I think Citra
piney.
is definitely nice as a thread in a West Coast. But yeah, we've gone down like mainly Simcoe. So the Simcoe batch that we got at the moment is like nice piney kind of forest note to it, and then we got some Amarillo, which was a last minute addition. But yeah, we've got this super orangey kind of marmalade Amarillo that we've got at the minute. So we'll do some of that through, and then reflect that in the dry hop. Dry hop will probably be heavy on the Simcoe, and then the other two hops is just a kind of supporting act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how big are we going on that dry hop to get that aroma? I guess it's going to be significantly lower than a New England one.
Not necessarily.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
No, pretty big.
Okay,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Again, it's like bumping up that aroma.
I found because you're fining it, that drops quite a lot of the aroma.
Okay, so you strip stuff out, so you want more.
You want to get as much in there and as much oils in there before you then fine it and strip it all out again. So like if you can still get all that aroma in, so it's almost like you need to kind of overshoot.
Yep.
And then you pull it back when you fine it and condition it, and it drops down a bit again.
So it's always craft beer finding the most efficient way to do things.
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, short of just putting oils in, that's kind of the way to go, I would say. Yeah.
There's almost a campaign element to us with West Coast IPA now. Like we love doing collabs with them, we love championing
even got
them.
the shirt.
I've even got a t-shirt that literally says West is best, because it is almost like we're trying to re-educate people and go like IPA can be lots of different things.
Yeah.
I think even within the West Coast style, it can be lots of different things. And I honestly don't think there's a more divisive style. So it's a bit like when you talk to an Italian about pizza, like no Italian anywhere agrees where the best pizza is, right?
Yeah.
And it's the simplest thing, right? A pizza, and no one agrees on it. And West Coast is exactly the same thing. So you've got like Pliny on one end of the spectrum, and then Sierra Nevada. They taste like different beers, but they're the same style.
Yeah, almost different styles. I guess one comes from a very English background, like almost a very hoppy ESB.
Yeah.
And another one is almost like an imperial lager with a big old hop charge and.
So yeah, like the sign of a good West Coast is if it gets people arguing. So hopefully people will argue online about this.
I can't wait for this festival where everybody's
Just
arguing with each
shouting
other
at each other.
about what a West Coast IPA is. I mean, that's essentially the internet and also several episodes of the Craft Beer Channel. So there we have it, an old school West Coast IPA with a lick of Citra and some decent chewy maltiness. We got to work digging out the mash tun, while the people who knew what they were doing took the gravity reading and started weighing out the hops, which is usually my cue to jump in and suggest we rub them and get all excited. So these are the only three hops going in, right?
This is the only three going in. Yeah. Well, other than the
hot side
bittering.
and cold side.
So we got Amarillo, Citra, and Simcoe.
Yep.
Was just going to be Citra Simcoe, but Max pointed out the Amarillo's tastes really nice at the moment. So a bit of an orangey note to it, a bit of a kind of marmalade note to it.
I'm going to get stuck in with the
so you're on the
Simcoe, one of my
Simcoe.
favourites.
Simcoe first,
Simcoe is one of those hops that can be sort of anything it wants to be, depending on when it's picked, where it's from.
Very much so,
and the year.
I think that's the thing, especially with a lot of these bigger acreage hops, they do vary quite a lot just based on when they're picked.
Yeah.
If you've got a massive acreage of it, it means that inevitably some of it's going to be early, some of it's going to be late.
Yep.
So it really depends.
And that's what hop selection sort of comes down to some extent, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So what I get from Simcoe, like there's a lovely kind of grapefruit note to that.
Definitely.
But it's also
Massively.
a little bit caramelly, a little bit soft and sweet and...
Yeah, it's definitely got a sweeter note to it. I'm getting like grapefruit and a bit of pine and...
Yeah,
I'm just getting loads of grapefruit, lemon, kind of just sweet citrus.
just
Kind of
smells
pithy
beautiful.
vibe in there as well, which is good. Which
Yeah,
is
all
nice.
beers that are heavy in Simcoe have a kind of smooth, sticky bitterness to them.
Yeah.
Sort of brings an
We've
oily...
had some really good
sticky quality to it.
results with Simcoe this year, actually.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the majority of the hops going in cold side. And then we got Citra and Amarillo just to back it up a bit. So
Citra's an interesting one with West Coast, because obviously Citra came out in sort of 2009-ish, so West Coast was well established by then. So it's sort of not a traditionally West Coast hop, but it's so versatile, right? A bit like Simcoe, can go across almost any style. Yeah, I mean, way more kind of what's inside the fruit, not just the outside of the fruit in this sort of
it's a bit more
little
full-bodied.
juicy element.
Yeah.
I think that'll add a nice note though to the beer and kind of bring out some of those bottom notes a bit as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like the bottom fruit notes, not the top notes, which is important to have when you've got a big malt body.
But it's got that concurrent kind of like note that the Simcoe had as well, like just less higher. Do you know what I mean? Model.
Look at the difference in colour between these hops. Like we think they all smell the same and look the same to some extent when they're in pellet form, but they look entirely different.
The Amarillo are quite almost pale.
It's really soft and spicy orange.
Yeah.
Almost
a bit of spice on that.
Chris Dingle kind of vibes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like
I'm actually off the Amarillo getting more ribes
Right.
than the Simcoe. I was saying Simcoe sometimes has that kind of ribes cat-wee thing.
Yeah.
I get a little bit off this Amarillo. Not a lot, but
A little bit of funky.
yeah.
I'm getting that like
I like the
maybe.
Amarillo for that.
that
little
kind
bit
of
fun.
orange, skinny kind of stickiness from it, but also nice kind of tree line.
Yeah, this is going to definitely lovely forest vibes, which
Yeah.
we're looking for, but also,
It's still
we'll probably have to be careful with the Citra, but plenty of plenty
the
of
citra will be
richer
like
fruit's going to come.
10% of the dry hop.
Yeah.
I think it'll be grand. Yeah.
Well, that's
Definitely
exciting.
think that Simcoe just is the main
Yeah.
main event.
It's the main one, definitely.
It's going to be. And now I can make the pun about the future being bright because that smells of orange.
Exactly.
So I've done that now. It's on camera.
That's a
It was
class.
spontaneous and hilarious. The bittering additions had already gone in, so with the aroma hops rubbed and some small tweaks to the timing and quantity of the additions, it was up to me to not miss the manway, and Brad to not miss me missing the manway. We then went to meet Danny to get a first look at the label.
So yeah, here we have it, Jay's illustration for Embers.
He's absolutely knocked it out of the West Coast American National Park by the looks of it.
He really has.
That's great. I can see you've got short shorts. That's in my
Johnny.
honour, right?
Oh no, actually,
That's
yeah,
for
sorry,
me.
that's you.
Short
Absolutely,
shorts.
you're the short guy.
Johnny loves a baseball hat, a red baseball hat.
And he's got a fantastic ponytail.
Great ponytail,
Really
Johnny.
good. Not many people.
That'd be a reveal, wouldn't it?
Not many people know about the party at the back.
No way, yeah. No one ever sees him from the back.
And I think this is kind of a collective embodiment of the BEAK team.
Yeah,
you know.
lovely. A pine tree there as well.
Pine tree. Well, don't know about you, but my first experience of a proper West Coast IPA was actually in California on Big Sur camping.
Come on.
Yeah, just lots of very fresh bottles of Sierra Nevada around a campfire.
That's amazing.
And that's what
an
Jay's
amazing
trying to
memory.
capture here.
So for you, it like accesses this incredible actual memory of travel experience. When you think West Coast, that's what it unlocks for you.
Yeah. I feel like it's one of those experiences that everyone should have, a really fresh bottle of ice cold Sierra Nevada around a campfire.
That's beautiful. Great. So Embers, we're loving Embers. Maybe, hopefully, thinking going with Embers.
Sounds great. Yeah, very evocative of those kind of West Coast campsite experiences.
Yeah, it's like a. God damn it. Yeah, and you know, drinking a crispy Sierra makes you kind of want to stay out till the campfire is burning out and there's only embers left.
Exactly. Yeah, and also, you know, it's kind of a nod to the sort of caramel influences there as well. So
Yeah.
I think it's really good.
After a good long hop stand, we started transferring the beer, Godspeed, and also started transferring some beers into our faces, which kicked off our now traditional philosophical question with all the breweries we've made collabs with for the festival. See, as we've been going around to the 10 breweries that we're collaborating with, we've been asking everybody, like, you know, what big lessons they've learned about beer or life in the last sort of 10 years. Well, we've already done a video where we talked about that, and mostly it was, there's a reason lager's the biggest beer style in the world. It's because it's delicious and amazing and our lifeblood. But what sort of stuff have you learned since, I guess, starting BEAK 7 years ago and then, you know, starting working here 3-4 years ago?
What have I learned about beer or life or both?
Both. Can we
Life.
separate
Life
them?
is
Life,
big-
that's a big
What have
question.
you
a
learned
really
about
big
life in the
question.
last 10
Big
years?
question.
The thing that I always bang on about is, and this sounds so cheesy, but we call it nectar here, and it's become a bit of a running joke. But but essentially, like on WhatsApp, if someone's engaged in a piece of work that's really unromantic, so let's say
Cleaning the bin area.
yeah, let's say you've come into cellar on a Saturday and you notice that there's a load of grime outside the bin area, and you're on your hands and knees and you're scraping up the mud, putting it in
Digging
the bin.
out the trench drains, you know,
And we'll
cleaning
share-
the trench drains out.
Yeah, and
The
we'll
really nasty jobs.
And we'll
Yeah.
share a photo on our WhatsApp saying, out there getting that lovely nectar.
Yeah.
And basically, the whole point of that, for me, is that small businesses are just built on really hard work and passion, essentially. So there is actually not that much romance to running a craft brewery or any small business. It's all just built on,
Not that much
passion.
glamour.
Not that much glamour, but actually, sometimes when you're get out there getting that nectar, you can question what you're doing with your life.
not
But you
wrong.
know what? Actually, they're the most important bits of business. So this is all really good fun, but when you're out there getting the nectar, that's where business
It's
is.
the shit that keeps stuff moving every day. The unglamorous stuff. It's just
I
like,
think
you've got to do it, keeps it moving, keeps stuff ticking over.
And no one's above doing
Yeah.
those nectar
Above getting the
jobs,
nectar.
getting the nectar.
Yeah, I mean, aside from Sainsbury's probably wanting that phrase, I think it's a lovely way of looking at it, because I think craft beer, when it first started, it was never glamorous, but it was seen as like artisanal and exciting
rock
and
starry
rocks.
kind of,
Exactly,
yeah.
that's where I was headed. Like this
Yeah.
whole idea of brewers as rock stars. I remember being starstruck by
Yeah.
some of the early brewers, and now you sort of, the more I've got into the industry, the more I've realised that it's a very dirty, very intense, and utterly unglamorous job. And I think you have to really enjoy that element of it, or else you won't enjoy being in this industry. And
Yeah.
you know, obviously we present the glamour, right? We try to make everything look beautiful and romantic and tell the stories that are very exciting. But at the end of the day, you know, we're witnessing you guys doing it, and we're also on the digital side having to do all this kind of unglamorous stuff.
Yeah.
And it's been interesting, I guess, a bit of a reality check in craft brewing of late with the struggles that beer and the world has had.
Yeah.
It's been thrown into focus that being in brewing is tough.
But also, like, what I would add to that is, like, don't, like, lose, if you're into craft beer, don't lose the faith in what craft beer is, because that element of craft is still real. And you could, like, I see it, you know, every week when we go and do collaborations with different breweries. I know of no other industry that collaborates like breweries do, and we genuinely do work together as an industry to try and further the whole industry for craft brewing. And, you know, people are just so generous with sharing knowledge and helping each other out. So that, like, craft element is definitely alive, for sure.
For all the challenges and growth that craft brewing has gone through, Danny is of course right. The fact that a YouTube channel could email 10 craft breweries and ask them to brew a beer with them is testament to that, and long may it continue, because creating joyful things with people like Danny and Robin is the thing we love most about our job. Talking of things we love, Ember's IPA turned out to be an absolute stone cold stunner. So there was a bit of confusion down at BEAK on the brew day, wasn't there?
Yeah, we thought we were brewing a pale ale, didn't we, Johnny?
Yeah, so I haven't edited that video yet, so I don't know whether it's going to make the cut, but I'm going to tell you now. I balanced this list for the festival very carefully with session strength, big strength, sours, Westies, East.
All ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, and then they just didn't read the email. So when we sent over like our rough recipe, he just dialed it up. He was like, "Oh, that's a bit weak for an IPA." It's like, well, that
It's a pale.
was on purpose. So yes, so our very delicious West Coast Pale turned into a very delicious West Coast IPA.
Yeah.
And because the mash was more efficient, the 6% IPA they planned turned into a 6.4. Ooh. So then they had to change the hopping rates as well to adjust for that. So they were brewing a bit on the fly, but you wouldn't know it to look at the colour of this thing.
Man, look at that.
I can't think of a better looking West Coast IPA I've seen in the UK.
That's a great amber colour, Johnny.
It is crystal clear,
It's very
beautiful
satisfying.
amber. It's just a gorgeous looking beer. Absolutely stunning. Exactly what you'd expect. And you don't see many of them brewed like this in the UK. There's not enough of them. This was very much an old school West Coast IPA. When we get to the Siren one, that's kind of California style, which we'll dig into. This is old school Westies, an homage to the big older guns, the big muskets of the of the American
The
beer
elephant
movement.
guns.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that just smells retro. Pine forest, grapefruit. Again, a little bit of chewy sweets, a little bit of caramel. What? Not fruit pastels. What's the really chewy gum? Fruit gums, were they? That were like
Chewy
flatter and
fruit
really
pastel.
chewy.
Oh, yeah, okay, yes. Yeah.
I can't remember what they were called, but it smells a bit like those.
Yeah.
They
They
fruit
weren't pastels.
gums?
They were gums, were they?
The pastels have the sugar
sugar
out.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then
gums,
they were
Go
like
gums.
Yeah.
The ones that just get stuck in your teeth.
Exactly that.
But
yeah.
are like really full
Yeah,
on.
and I think this is going to be quite stuck in your teeth as well. Very chewy. I'm looking forward to it. So there's a big malt character, which is what's been removed in modern West Coasts, but also big pine, citrus, gumminess, and a kind of resiny honey thing as well.
Beautiful.
Smells gorgeous, looks gorgeous.
Oh yeah, nice level of bitterness. Caramelly.
Yeah, I think it's pretty. You know, the only thing I would change about this actually is the carbonation. I just
Little bit more carb.
oomph it a bit more
Yeah, a little bit maybe.
because it's a pintable beer.
yeah.
But it just needs to be a bit zippier. Bitterness-wise, flavour-wise, aroma-wise, absolute perfection. Just wanted a bit more carby zip, and I would have drunk that all of the festival.
And fallen over.
Yeah, it would have been a disaster. An absolute disaster.
It's a pale ale, right?
I mean, we even had to change the beer menus
Yeah.
that we gave out to everybody, because if I hadn't changed that ABV, people would have been in real trouble.
I think that's banging, man.
Yeah.
I know the carbonation a little bit down, but in terms of aroma, flavour, that's hitting all the West Coast bases for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And they were surprised when we said to them we want to do a Westie with you, which came purely off of their one, Trees, which I thought was brilliant. They were like, oh, we're more known for the hazy. And I was like, I know, but you're really, really good at West Coast IPAs. And I'm really glad that we went to them for this, because I don't think anybody else would have had the stones to go all out, big character. And I pushed their character up a little bit as well. They were like, let's go for this. And I was like, come on, a little bit higher.
They're brave brewers at BEAK, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. They are. And they commit
Courageous.
to styles as well.
Yeah,
they really do. And I think it's absolutely stunning. And also a big shout out to you for the name as well, because that's perfect. The colour of it almost looks like an ember.
Embery.
An ember going out, the dying light of the fire.
I like it.
That's what it looks like.
Jay, we saw the artwork when we were there, didn't we? Jay Cover had kind of sort of been working on it. I'm not sure if it was fully colorized at that point.
No, not quite. It was getting there.
But I just saw it and thought, well, I had a little list of names, but you thought I was being rude at the table because I wasn't talking, but I was writing down some names. And then that's how it works sometimes. You just come out with these things and...
You've got to embrace the muse when...
Yeah, it had some bad names as well, but the good one, one good one is the one that counts.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, thank you, BEAK. You absolutely nailed
Smashed
the
it.
brief, and I hope you make more Westies.
I'll drink to that.